The recreation hall of Outpost Stellar 9 buzzed with nervous energy as 30 alien soldiers gathered for what their commanders called a cultural exchange. Most had never seen a human in person before, and rumors about the Earth species circulated in hushed tones throughout the room. "I heard they can survive radiation that would kill most of us," whispered a blueskin technician to his companion. "That's nothing. My cousin served with one who continued fighting after losing a limb," replied another, his scales shimmering under the bright lights. Lieutenant Kim moved purposefully through the room, checking that everything was in order. As the liaison officer, it was his responsibility to ensure this meeting went smoothly. The coalition had only recently begun integrating human forces into their ranks, and misunderstandings were common. The door slid open with a soft hiss, and the room fell silent. Commander Park entered, walking with a straight posture that immediately identified him as military. He was of average height for a human but towered over several of the alien species present. His face bore the weathered look of someone who had seen many battles, with a scar running from his left temple to his jaw. Captain Tay, the Saurian commander, stepped forward. His reptilian features remained expressionless, but the rapid blinking of his ternary eyes revealed his interest. "Welcome to Outpost Stellar 9, Commander Park," said Captain Tay, carefully pronouncing the human name. "We are honored by your presence." Park nodded. "The honor is mine, Captain. I've served alongside Saurians before. Excellent tactical minds." Lieutenant Kim cleared his throat. For those unaware, Commander Park is a retired combat specialist from Earth, classified as Death World 3. A collective murmur swept through the room. Death World classifications were rarely discussed openly, but everyone knew what it meant. Earth was among the most dangerous inhabited planets in known space, with extreme weather, high gravity, diverse pathogens, and aggressive fauna. That any species could evolve there and survive was remarkable enough. That they had developed spaceflight technology and joined the coalition was nothing short of astonishing. Medical Officer Lee approached, her 8 limbs moving in perfect harmony beneath her iridescent exoskeleton. "Commander, I have studied human physiology but never had the opportunity to speak with one of your kind directly. Your species fascinates me." "I'm happy to answer questions," Park replied with a smile that several aliens found unsettling, the flat teeth so unlike the specialized feeding appendages of most sentient species. Sergeant Kong watched from the back of the room. As a warrior from the high-gravity world Monolith, he prided himself on physical strength. He crossed his massive arms, clearly skeptical about what this soft-skinned creature could teach them about combat. "Commander Park will be sharing combat experiences from his 20 cycles of service," Lieutenant Kim announced. "Coalition Command believes this knowledge will help prepare troops for deployment to harsh environments." Park moved to the center of the room where a holographic projector waited. "I understand there's curiosity about humans. Some fear, too. That's natural. But I'm not here to frighten anyone, just to share what I've learned in hopes it might keep some of you alive someday." He activated the projector, displaying an image of Earth's varied landscapes, from snow-capped mountains to scorching deserts, dense jungles to vast oceans. "This is where I come from," Park said simply. "A world of extremes that forced my species to adapt or die. Every human carries that evolutionary history in their genes. It makes us different, but not better. Each species here has their own strengths." Captain Tay stepped forward. "Commander, many of my soldiers have heard stories about human resilience in battle. Are these exaggerated?" Park's expression grew serious. "Some probably are. But others?" He paused, considering his words carefully. "Let's just say there are reasons why the hegemony forces have started targeting human units first in mixed-species combat." Sergeant Khan finally spoke up, his deep voice rumbling. "Words are easy. I would hear of actual battles." A slight smile crossed Park's face. "Fair enough, Sergeant. Let me tell you about my first deployment, and you can judge for yourself." The room grew quiet as Park adjusted the holographic display. Even the skeptical Sergeant Khan leaned forward slightly, unable to hide his interest as the human veteran prepared to share stories that would forever change how these alien soldiers viewed their human allies. Retry SF Park adjusted the holographic display to show a harsh, barren landscape. The image revealed jagged mountains under a sickly yellow sky, with what looked like acid lakes dotting the terrain. The alien soldiers leaned forward, suddenly attentive. "This is Helios 6, Park said, his voice taking on a deeper tone. "My first real combat deployment. The atmosphere contains sulfur compounds that corrode most respiratory systems within hours." Officer Lee's antennae twitched with interest. Such environments require special containment suits for most coalition species. "Yes," Park nodded. "Your standard troops were limited to 4-hour rotations before needing full medical treatment." He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. "My human unit operated there for 3 weeks with minimal protection." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the gathering. During basic training on Earth, Park continued, human soldiers routinely march 40 kilometers carrying 30-kilogram packs in temperatures ranging from scorching heat to freezing cold. Our instructors consider this fundamental preparation. Captain Tay's scaled skin rippled in what the others recognized as surprise. "That matches the distance between our forward operating bases, but we'd never consider a single-day transit on foot." Park smiled slightly. "On Earth, we call it Tuesday." Some nervous laughter broke out among the aliens, though many weren't sure if the human was joking. The hologram shifted to show footage of a battlefield. Human soldiers moved with surprising speed across rocky terrain, taking cover behind natural formations while enemy fire, bright pulses of energy rained down around them. "My squad was deployed to secure a strategic mining facility," Park explained. Intelligence failed to mention that the hegemony had established 3 heavily fortified positions overlooking the only approach. The aliens watched as the recording showed a small group of humans pinned down by devastating fire. "We lost communication with headquarters in the first hour," Park said quietly. "Our lieutenant was killed. We were outgunned, outnumbered, with no reinforcements coming." Sergeant Kong leaned forward. "A tactical withdrawal would be the only option." "That's what the enemy expected," Park replied. "Instead, we split into 3 teams and circled behind their positions under cover of darkness." The hologram showed night vision footage of humans crawling through what appeared to be highly toxic sludge, their faces set in grim determination. "You swam through poison?" asked a young alien officer in the back, his voice cracking. "We did what was necessary," Park answered simply. "The toxins caused skin burns and temporary vision impairment, but it was survivable for humans." The footage showed the aftermath: human soldiers, their skin blistered and raw, launching a surprise attack on the hegemony forces. Despite their injuries, they moved with coordinated precision. "Private Choi took shrapnel through his abdomen during the assault," Park said, pointing to a soldier who continued firing even as dark liquid seeped through his uniform. "He provided covering fire for 6 hours until extraction arrived." Officer Lee rose from her seat, agitation evident in her quick movements. With such an injury, he should have been immediately incapacitated. "The blood loss alone." "Humans have evolved redundant systems," Park interrupted gently. "And we can temporarily shut down blood flow to injured areas. We call it clotting." "But the pain," Lee insisted, her scientific curiosity overtaking protocol. "Pain is information," Park said. "Humans can choose to process that information later when survival is at stake." The room had grown completely silent. "Impossible," Sergeant Kong muttered, but his tone lacked conviction. Park touched his control pad, and the hologram showed the aftermath of the battle. Human soldiers, injured but alive, stood among defeated enemy forces 3 times their number. The hegemony forces radioed their command that they were being attacked by demons who couldn't be killed, Park said. "After that battle, our unit was nicknamed the Immortals." He switched off the hologram, leaving the room in momentary darkness before the regular lights returned. "That was just our first engagement," Park said quietly. "Many of us had never seen combat before. We weren't special forces or elite troops. Just standard human infantry doing what we were trained to do." Captain Tay's normally impassive face showed clear astonishment. "Your species considers this normal?" Park shrugged. "When you evolve on a world that's constantly trying to kill you, you develop certain adaptations." Sergeant Kong, who had been the most skeptical, studied the human with new respect. I begin to understand why the hegemony fears your kind. Park's expression turned serious. They don't fear us enough. Not yet. The alien soldiers exchanged glances, suddenly grateful that humans had joined the coalition rather than opposed it. Retry SF Commander Park took a sip of water as the alien soldiers processed what they had just learned. Their earlier nervousness had transformed into a focused attention that bordered on reverence. Even Sergeant Kong, who had been openly doubtful, now watched the human with new eyes. Let me explain what makes humans different on a biological level, Park said, rolling up his sleeve to reveal a network of scars along his forearm. Some appeared surgical, while others were jagged and rough. Officer Lee moved closer, her scientific curiosity overcoming her natural caution. May I examine? She asked, raising one delicate appendage. Park nodded, extending his arm. The alien medic gently traced the largest scar, a long, curved line that ran from wrist to elbow. This was a plasma burn from the Battle of Centauri Ridge, Park explained. Caught the edge of an enemy blast while pulling a Saurian officer to safety. The tissue has completely regenerated, Lee observed, her voice betraying her amazement. Our species would require synthetic replacement or mechanical augmentation for such damage. Humans heal, Park said simply. Our bodies are constantly rebuilding themselves. A broken bone can mend in weeks. Damaged organs can recover function. Even our blood replenishes itself completely. He pulled his sleeve back down. The coalition medics patched me up after this injury, and I was back in combat within days. But how do you manage the pain? Asked a small, blue-skinned alien near the front. Park smiled slightly. That's another human advantage. We produce natural chemicals called endorphins that block pain signals. And we have something called adrenaline. He tapped on his control pad, and the holographic display activated again, showing medical diagrams of human biology. When humans are threatened or stressed, our bodies release adrenaline, Park explained. It increases strength, speed, and reduces our perception of pain. We become faster, stronger, and more focused in dangerous situations. A combat drug that you produce naturally? Captain Tay asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. Exactly, Park confirmed. During the now famous marathon stand at Proxima Colony, my unit held position for 72 hours without sleep while under constant enemy fire. The hologram shifted to battle footage showing human soldiers moving with startling speed, their faces set in expressions the aliens now recognized as the terrifying human battle rage. 72 hours without rest is not possible, protested a tall, willowy alien in the back. All sentient species require regular recovery cycles. Humans can delay sleep when necessary, Park replied. We suffer consequences later, but in survival situations, we can remain combat effective for days. Sergeant Kong finally spoke up. I have heard that humans can survive in almost any environment. Is this true? Park nodded. We evolved on a world with every imaginable climate, freezing Arctic regions, scorching deserts, humid jungles, high mountains with thin air, deep oceans. Humans have lived in all these places for thousands of years. But how? Asked Officer Lee. Most species require specific environmental conditions. We adapt, Park said. Humans can acclimatize to extreme temperatures, different atmospheric pressures, varying gravity. It takes time, but we adjust. Park touched his control pad again. The hologram displayed a human diving deep underwater without breathing equipment, then shifted to another climbing a mountain without oxygen support. With training, humans can hold their breath for over 10 minutes, Park explained. We can survive in freezing water that would kill most species within seconds. Our bodies automatically redistribute blood flow to protect vital organs. This is why humans were recruited despite coming from an uncatalogued world, Captain Tay realized aloud. Your adaptability makes you ideal for frontline deployment. There's more, Park continued. Humans have remarkable endurance. While many species evolved for short bursts of speed or strength, humans evolved to pursue prey over long distances. We can literally run most creatures to exhaustion. He played footage of a human unit pursuing hegemony forces across a desert terrain, maintaining a steady pace that eventually wore down their technologically superior enemies. This was the Dune campaign, Park explained. The enemy had better weapons, better armor, better everything. But they couldn't match our persistence. Sergeant Kong stepped forward, his massive form looming over the other aliens. I challenged these claims, he said, but his tone was respectful rather than dismissive. My species is known for physical strength. Would you demonstrate human capabilities? Park considered for a moment, then nodded. A simple test, then. He picked up a metal rod used for training exercises and bent it slowly until it formed a U shape. The metal groaned under the pressure but didn't break. The assembled aliens watched in stunned silence. Not our maximum strength, Park clarified, handing the bent rod to Sergeant Kong. Just what an average human can do when necessary. Kong examined the bent metal, then inclined his head in a gesture of newfound respect. Now, Park said, let me tell you about our most challenging mission, the nightmare that was the Vorus campaign. The atmosphere in the room shifted as Park mentioned the Vorus campaign. Even Lieutenant Kim, who had been maintaining a professional distance, leaned forward with interest. The Vorus campaign was classified, few outside the highest military circles had heard the full story. What I'm about to share was restricted information, Park said quietly. But Coalition Command has authorized me to discuss it for training purposes. He activated the holographic display again. The image showed a world that, at first glance, appeared lush and beautiful, dense forests, winding rivers, and rolling plains. But as the view zoomed closer, the alien soldiers could see details that sent shivers through their various appendages. The trees had razor-sharp edges. The rivers glowed with bioluminescent predators. The plains writhed with movement. Vorus 9, Park explained. A world remarkably similar to Earth in terms of gravity, atmosphere, and temperature. What our scientists call a sister death world. Captain Tay's scales rippled with recognition. I've heard rumors. An entire coalition battle group was deployed there 3 cycles ago. The reports were incomplete. Park nodded grimly. For good reason. Vorus was a catastrophe for most coalition forces. Of the 12 species deployed, 10 suffered casualty rates above 80%. The hologram shifted to show footage of alien soldiers, not unlike those sitting in the room, being overwhelmed by native predators that seemed to emerge from everywhere at once. The recording had been edited to remove the most disturbing content, but what remained was horrifying enough. The indigenous life forms on Vorus evolved in an environment even more competitive than Earth's, Park continued. They viewed our arrival as a new food source. Officer Lee's appendages trembled. But the casualties among human forces? Our records show they were minimal. Park's expression darkened. 7% losses. We were the only species that could function effectively in that environment. The display changed to show human soldiers moving through the hostile terrain with practiced caution, using tactics that seemed almost instinctual. They worked in tight formations, always watching each other's backs. Humans evolved alongside apex predators, Park explained. Our ancestors survived by developing pattern recognition, the ability to sense danger before it strikes. What terrified other coalition forces felt familiar to us. Sergeant Kong studied the footage with professional interest. Your soldiers move like they've trained for this specific environment. We hadn't, Park replied simply. But Earth has similar dangers. Poisonous creatures, camouflaged predators, parasitic organisms. Humans instinctively recognize threat patterns. The hologram shifted again, showing a particularly brutal engagement. A human squad was separated from their extraction point by a valley teeming with predators. As they advanced, 3 soldiers were injured by attacks from creatures that launched themselves from hiding places. This is where it gets difficult to explain, Park said quietly. What you're about to see contradicts everything most coalition medics believe about trauma response. The footage showed injured human soldiers administering emergency medical care to themselves, sealing wounds, removing foreign objects, applying tourniquets. Then, remarkably, they continued fighting. During Operation Revenant, we lost all medical support, Park explained. Humans with injuries that would incapacitate most species self-treated and continued the mission. One soldier in particular caught everyone's attention. Despite a severe injury to his leg, he continued providing covering fire for his comrades, his face set in what the aliens now recognized as the human expression of determined endurance. Staff Sergeant Han, Park identified him. His femoral artery was partially severed. He used a field cauterization technique, then continued fighting for 4 more hours. Officer Lee rose from her seat, mandibles clicking in agitation. That's medically impossible. The pain alone would render any sentient being unconscious. For most species, yes, Park acknowledged. But humans evolved with what we call shock response. Our bodies can temporarily shut down pain receptors in life-threatening situations. The room had grown completely silent. Even the most skeptical aliens were watching with undisguised awe. The Vorus campaign changed how Coalition Command views human forces, Park continued. We're not just soldiers, we're evolutionary specialists in survival under extreme conditions. Captain Tay's voice was subdued when he finally spoke. The hegemony fears humans because of incidents like this, don't they? They call you the unkillable ones. Park nodded slowly. They've developed specific weapons targeted at human physiology. They prioritize eliminating human units first in any engagement. A sign of respect, Sergeant Kong observed, all earlier skepticism gone from his voice. Perhaps, Park agreed. But it's more than that. The hegemony leadership understands something that even some in the coalition don't fully grasp yet. Humans don't fight like other species because we don't think like other species. He switched off the holographic display, leaving the room in contemplative silence. Our greatest weapon isn't our endurance or our adaptability, Park said quietly. It's how we approach impossible situations. When a human is told something cannot be done, we take it as a challenge to prove otherwise. The recreation hall had grown completely silent. The alien soldiers stared at Commander Park with a mixture of awe, respect, and lingering traces of fear. Even Lieutenant Kim appeared moved by the veteran's accounts. Park took a moment to look around the room, making eye contact with as many of the gathered aliens as possible. When he spoke again, his voice was softer than before. I didn't come here just to frighten you with stories about human resilience, he said. I came to tell you why humans make good allies, not just good soldiers. He activated the holographic display one final time. The image showed a battlefield, but instead of combat, it displayed something unexpected: a human medic treating a wounded Saurian soldier while under enemy fire. This was during the Battle of Arcturus, Park explained. Medical Officer Jun risked his life to save Captain Nam of the Saurian 3rd Division. When asked why he exposed himself to enemy fire for an alien, Jun said simply, "He's not an alien. He's my comrade." The display shifted to another scene: a massive alien similar to Sergeant Kong carrying 2 injured humans across a battlefield. Major Song, Park identified the alien. He could have escaped the ambush easily on his own. Instead, he carried Private Shin and Corporal Huang 3 kilometers to safety. When his commanding officer questioned this decision, Song said, "Humans would have done the same for me." Captain Tay leaned forward. "These are not commonly shared stories." No, Park agreed. The coalition leadership prefers to emphasize our combat capabilities rather than our capacity for loyalty. But the truth is, humans don't just fight well, we form bonds quickly, even with species very different from our own. The hologram displayed a series of images showing humans working alongside various alien species, sharing meals, maintaining equipment together, even participating in alien cultural rituals. Our adaptability isn't just physical, Park continued. Humans can form social connections across species boundaries more easily than most. We're curious by nature. We want to understand others. Officer Lee raised a limb in question. Yet I've heard humans can be aggressive toward those you consider different. Park nodded soberly. That's true. Our history has dark chapters of conflict between different human groups. But we've learned from those mistakes. When we joined the coalition, we brought those hard lessons with us. He switched to footage of a mixed human-alien unit moving with coordinated precision through a complex urban environment, each species covering for the other's vulnerabilities. "This is what makes humans truly valuable to the coalition," Park said. "We don't just endure, we adapt. We learn. We compensate for weaknesses with innovation." He paused the display on an image of a human officer and a Saurian commander studying tactical plans together. "There's something else you should know," Park added, his voice growing serious. "In joint operations, humans have actually been restraining ourselves." A murmur of surprise ran through the audience. "Coalition Command was concerned that our natural combat methods might disturb our allies," Park explained. "We were instructed to modify our approach to appear less intimidating." Sergeant Kong stepped forward. "You held back? Even against the hegemony?" "Yes," Park confirmed. "Our natural instincts in combat can appear brutal to other species. We were concerned about frightening the very allies we were trying to protect." The room fell silent as the aliens processed this revelation. "The galaxy is changing," Park continued. "The hegemony grows more aggressive each cycle. They target coalition weaknesses with increasing precision. We can no longer afford to hold back." Captain Tay rose to his full height. "We request training in these human methods," he said formally. "My soldiers need every advantage they can get." Park studied the Saurian commander thoughtfully. "It won't be easy. Some of what we'll teach goes against instincts deeply embedded in your species." "Nothing worthwhile ever is," said Sergeant Kong, stepping forward to stand beside Captain Tay. "My warriors will learn." Around the room, other alien soldiers stood, signaling their agreement. Park nodded slowly. "Then we'll begin tomorrow." But first, he reached into his pocket and withdrew a small metal object. He handed it to Captain Tay. "This belonged to a Saurian officer who saved my life during my first tour," Park explained. "Before he died, he asked me to return it to his homeworld someday. I think he would want you to have it now." Captain Tay examined the object, a military insignia bearing marks of honor. His normally impassive face showed clear emotion. "I will carry it with pride," he said, his voice thick with feeling. As the gathering began to disperse, Officer Lee approached Park quietly. "Commander, after hearing your stories, I must ask, do humans fear anything?" Park smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his weathered face. "Of course we do. We fear failing those who depend on us. We fear losing the people we care about. Just like you." Sergeant Kong approached last, extending his massive hand in the human greeting gesture he had clearly practiced. "Until tomorrow, Commander," he said as Park clasped his hand firmly. "We are honored to be your brothers in arms."